I know a lot about the lives of everyone that dwells in the nearby countryside. I remember when their forefathers first moved here and began to farm the land. For nearly 500 years I had thought of this land as my personal realm, but one of the rules of my exile is that I have no contact whatsoever with humans, at least not while in my full wizard regalia. If I could do things my way, and need not obey the conditions set forth by the other two wizards of the Immortal Three, I would gather together all the farmers and their families that work my land to question them about my blue crystal. I would take the smallest of clues, collect them together in a sack, so to speak, give that sack a good shake, and spill them out. I have no doubt that, like puzzle pieces, they would all fit together, hence revealing the place where my beloved blue crystal resides. On approaching the house belonging to Chuck Whitney, I did something that I had never before found necessary. I changed my physical appearance. In truth, I am quite an impressive giant, standing almost 8 feet tall. I am ageless, appearing neither young nor old, and with the dismissal of modesty, I must say I am quite easy on the eyes. For my task, I found it best to look like a shabby, middle-aged door-to-door salesman, with a persona of pushy obnoxiousness. After trading a bottle of my potion to Suzanne Whitney, the lady of the house, for 36 homemade cookies, I hurried west to the next farmhouse, where an old farmer named Thomas Mayhew lived. I knocked on his door, but received no answer. So I knocked more loudly and impatiently, as if there were an emergency of great consequence at hand. "Thomas Mayhew," I called loudly, "do you hear me?" There was no answer, nor could I hear the sound of any movement within the house. As it turned out, it was of greater consequence than I had anticipated. With no time to spare, I threw open the door and followed my wizard senses to the man's bedroom, where my eyes beheld a gruesome sight. Thomas Mayhew, who had been born and raised in that very house, and who had inherited the farm after the death of his parents, was no longer alive. All that remained of him was the body that had once contained his essence, and which was now just a dry husk wrapped up in spider silk. His body lay stretched out on the bed, its face a mask of undying horror. I surmised that an adult lion spider had attacked Thomas Mayhew as he napped there and sucked the life-sustaining juices out of him until not a drop of liquid remained. I do not know where the spirit of Thomas Mayhew has gone, but I hope that wherever it went, it is now resting in peace. Because I was of no use there, and had much work to do, I ran out of the front door and looked all around. I noticed there were some young lion spiders spreading westward from Mayhew's house, so I headed that way, zapping every one I saw. It wasn't long before I noticed some human activity ahead. I quickly changed my disguise and became a scruffy old man in tattered, dirty clothes, to appear more menacing to the men and boys gathered at the property line that separates the Whitney and Mayhew farms. The group was in the process of building a road. I had previous knowledge of their project, thanks to the ever-watchful eyes of my servants, but I was taken aback by how quickly they had progressed. When I happened upon them that day, they were just beginning to dig across Mayhew's property. Their present progression would not have bothered me on any other day before this Wednesday. It is so strange sometimes how things develop. My only option at the time was to do something astonishing which would cause them to abandon their task. After placing myself squarely on the property line, I aimed a shotgun at all of them and frightened them to the core, telling them in no uncertain terms that the land they were about to build a road through belonged to me now. They had to take their animals and equipment and depart, or else. I put on quite a scary show for them, to make sure of their departure. An interesting aspect of the incident is that one of the young boys in the group was bitten by a baby lion spider shortly before my appearance. The bite won't kill him, of course, but it might have some odd side effects. As soon as I put an end to their project, I changed my disguise back to that of the pushy salesman, and proceeded to visit all the remaining farmhouses to peddle my potion. Most of the people I persuaded to buy my potion were women, wives of the farmers. But 3 of my sales were to men, 2 of whom were unmarried, and 1 whose wife had taken to bed quite ill. I was able to sell the lion spider repellent to all but 1 man. His name is Lester Kitchen. It seems that Wednesday was not his best day, and my visitation only made it worse. He refused to buy my spider repellent and sent me off his property. Poor fellow! I hope that nothing evil befalls him for his folly. Each sale I made that day, while disguised as a peddler, had a peculiar characteristic of sameness about it. Not a single person in that community had any money. Well, I couldn't just give them the potion. They had to believe I was legitimate. So I convinced everyone to make a trade for what I had to offer them. I collected many strange items in trade for my potion. It was great sport, really, but the most fun for me was the way I returned the items of trade. I replaced each item in a way that all my customers considered to be supernatural. I made sure, of course, that everyone had used the potion exactly as I had told them before I returned their bargaining items, for which I, of course, had no use. Sadly, the lion spider repellent was not a permanent solution to the monstrosity's invasion. Those ill-begotten creatures are still running amok in the countryside. Fortunately, the houses and outbuildings of those who used my potion are safe. Early Thursday morning, I called all of my servants to meet with me, thinking that they might have some insights on how to deal with the intruding lion spiders. After all, this part of the world abounds with supernatural energy, and my servants have dealt with it much more than I. I am often frustrated by my servants' limitations, but this time I can afford them credit for having some intelligence. They told me of an ancient creature they had seen, whose dwelling place is high in the mountain peaks. I was certain I had once seen one of the things they described to me, but had dismissed it as yet another useless earthbound beast. But when my servants told me of some of the things they had witnessed this certain creature do, I decided I might be able to use its special talents after all. Taking one of my servants with me, I embarked eastward into the mountains to try to find this creature, my intention being to implore its assistance in my worthy cause. I soon located the beings which were the object of my search. A pair of enormous thunderbirds were guarding 3 massive eggs in their nest. The hatchlings within the nest were already beginning to peck their way out of their shells as the new parents looked proudly on. I learned their language immediately and congratulated them for their brood. The father bird flew effortlessly into the sky, circled once around the nest, and let out a cry of supreme delight. I made it known to the thunderbirds that I had located a wonderful prey with which they could feed their hatchlings. I described the lion spiders and where they could be found. The male seemed extremely happy with the prospect of rounding up as many of the giant prey as it could to feed to his new babies. I called the male my true heart friend. He joined my servant and me as we departed, flying high above our heads until we reached the pond by my cave, where he glided to its bank and softly landed. We made plans then, devising signals and codes by which we could communicate from afar. All day long the thunderbird did a splendid job of locating its prey, carrying them off toward its nest again and again. The only near mishap occurred Thursday afternoon when the farmer, Chuck Whitney, decided to call on me. He was looking for the scruffy, spooky old man he had encountered with his neighbors the day before. I did not choose to disappoint him. As he walked toward the pond, Whitney had noticed the thunderbird as it carried off one of its spidery victims through the air toward its nest. He saw a few other strange things on his way to see me as well, but they were none of my concern. I caused him to forget having seen the thunderbird with the lion spider in its talons. Then, just to ensure the poor farmer retained his sanity, I made him forget the purpose of his journey to find me, as well as all of the other strange things he had witnessed while on his errand. Late that evening, I decided a stronger potion was needed to rid the land of lion spiders. The new potion would need to kill many of the beasties at the same time, while remaining harmless to all other living creatures. I felt confident of my ability to accomplish this feat in a snap, so I put off plans to travel to my lab in Cairnile until the next morning. Before the sun was up today, I traveled to Cairnile via its portal, arriving at my private headquarters there. My task proved to be more difficult than I had imagined, and it took several days in Cairnile to concoct the formula in my laboratory. But because hours in Cairnile are as minutes on Earth, I was absent from Kentucky but a few hours. It was mid-afternoon when I finally returned with a new and much more effective lion spider potion. This new potion I concocted is a perfect mixture of minerals and herbs, which produces a potent and very lethal gas. When thrown into their lairs, dens, or wherever else they are found to be, it will destroy every lion spider with which it comes in contact. This moment finds me weary from all my work, so I have decided to rest and restore my vigor before my final destruction of the unholy enemy. I need to recharge my wizardly powers. I shall wait for tomorrow's morning light to distribute the lethal gas, which will put an end to the lion spiders in this dimension once and for all. For all eternity I remain Mortimer the Great.